is Jack Riback, age 71. Married, 2 children, 2 grandchildren. I'm retired now. I was in the motor industry for 35, 40 odd years. And that's it. Although I lived in Johannesburg, I had gone to farm in the Free State with a cousin of mine in a little place called Vicksburg. When we heard about the war and we heard that they were looking for volunteers, I got into a train and I caught 2 trains, and we arrived back in Johannesburg, and I applied at the Zionist Federation, and we sat around for a couple of weeks, and then eventually they put us on a plane and they sent us off to Israel. When we arrived in Israel, it was all disorganized and a bit chaotic, but they asked if I would be interested in being attached to the army to assist them doing recovery work, which I was interested in. They asked me what my background was, had I been in the army, and I told them I had been in the South African Army. Anyway, we were attached to the Israeli army, and we were then stationed in Jordan, in Beit Shefer Shotrim, a Jordanian police camp. Then what we used to do is they would take us out into the West Bank, and we would go to the army camps, which were basically deserted, and we would clear out the army camps and load them onto trucks, and they would truck these back into Israel and take them to wherever they were needed. So we spent 2 months in Jerusalem, Jordan, and I got to see the West Bank. I got to see very interesting places. I went to Jericho, went to Nablus. We went a few places I don't remember, but it was very interesting. Well, I was 20 years old when I went over, and first of all, it was an adventure, being paid for by the Zionist Federation, so I would have been crazy not to have gone. I had no commitments here. I had no ties. I wasn't studying. I wasn't working. My cousin was prepared to let me leave the farm and go off to Israel, which was very kind of him. And also, I'm a Jew. It was a case of Israel against... we didn't know the war was going to take 6 days, and it was going to be over. So, of course, we were very keen to get over there and play our part, like I mean, we, as any Jew should do, and pretty much did. That was the reason that we went over. That was probably the main reason we went over. Well, South Africa. Well, first of all, South Africa was very pro-Israel in those days, and there were no restrictions on us leaving and going over, and basically helping. So that helped a lot, and there was a very pro-Israeli sentiment in South Africa in those days. So when the news started coming through of the victories, and especially with the Air Force, we felt good. We felt really good. We only knew what we read. We weren't exposed to it. We didn't know that who they were fighting, where they were fighting, only from what we read. I'd never been to Israel before. But it felt good. It felt good that this little country could achieve so much against 5 countries. So it was a good feeling. It was a very good feeling. Made one proud. When I got off the plane, obviously, I was totally confused. I thought everybody spoke English, but that wasn't the case. And when I tried to speak Yiddish, I found out that not everybody spoke Yiddish. And I didn't speak French. I didn't speak Hebrew, but you get by. There's always somebody who speaks English. Thank God for television. It was nice. It was good. It was a strange experience meeting Jews from other countries. I'd never experienced that before. I was a South African Jew, brought up as a South African Jew. Very Orthodox parents, came out from Lithuania. I was first generation. When we left Jordan and they took us into Sinai, then it really became interesting, because then we were more on our own, and we were able to do stuff on our own. We found you learn very quickly. You learn with the Israelis very quickly. You make the best of what you've got, and you take all your opportunities. Once we started off from the main camp Parker, where we worked, and then from Parker they were moving us further into the Sinai, and we had to organize our own transport. That's where I learned quickly. You never run and get a Russian truck. You get an American truck, because you're going to get there a lot quicker than in the Russian trucks. From there we would go out, and they would take us to the various camps, as I said, and we would clear the camps. And I had a good technical knowledge, having a mechanical background. Coming back one day, I saw an abandoned tank, so I decided, what the hell? Got in the tank, started fiddling around. Batteries were flat. Found out that you could start the tank with compressed air. They had compressed air cylinders. Started up this Russian tank. Worked out how to drive it. You must forget I'd been in the South African Army, so I had some sort of experience in military vehicles. Started the tank, drove the tank back to the camp, knocked on the major's door and called him out. And what do you want? I said, President, me Drom Africa. And there was a tank. So he was very impressed. He was suitably impressed. So up to the stage we were loading bombs and loading beds and loading things, and it was hard work, and it was hot, and we were sweating. So he said to me, okay, you're in charge of tank recovery. Organize your team. So I got all my pals together, and we went off into the desert, and we used to look for tanks and armored carriers, and where we could start them, we used to start them up, and we used to bring them in. And that's how it went. So, oh yes, I had my 21st birthday in the Sinai Desert. So how do you celebrate? You go and you buy booze. So you go and you buy vodka at the army store, because you pay a fraction of the price. So I bought vodka and peanuts, and we had a party. And then of course we had a competition. They never try and drink the English under the table, because it's not going to work. And that was my 21st birthday party. The relationship between us and the army personnel was good when they could understand the language. There were some of us that had a smattering of Hebrew, but I mean, the Hebrew that I could speak would get me from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It wasn't going to get me any further. When they could speak to us and communicate, it had a wonderful relationship. They couldn't do enough for us. There was a sergeant called Benny. He was a real character. Benny says, we're in Jerusalem. He says, we're going to movies tonight. Okay, Benny. Will you organize transport? Yes, I'll organize transport. Come to the front of the camp, whatever time. Okay. Benny organized transport. He organized a 28-wheeler truck. We were going to movies in a 28-wheeler. And he'd put mattresses on the back so we could be comfortable. We went. He took the whole block, parked the whole block with his 28-tonner, and we went to movies. We had good times. We had a lot of good times. We were young. We were indestructible. We were in a foreign country. We were being paid the princely sum of 10 Rand a month by the Zionist Federation. So straight away you look for a rich girlfriend. But we were being fed, we were clothed, we hitched. We didn't pay for hotels. We worked hard, we got good suntans, we were fit, we were strong. And we were there, we didn't have to fight. We wouldn't have been allowed to fight because we were South Africans. We wouldn't have been allowed to fight. Yes, it was a good atmosphere. It was a very, very happy atmosphere. And until we went home. The friendships there were, well, with the South Africans, obviously you have a common rapport. But there were a lot of really nice people from overseas that we became very friendly with. And we would go off in groups of 8, 10 into Israel. We would hitch into Israel. Everything you hitched. But you were in an army uniform, nobody drove past you. We would hitch into Israel. We would stay in front of the finest hotels on their front lawns. We were very well received by the Israelis because we were volunteers. Couldn't do enough for us. We went to a nightclub one night in Haifa, and there was an Israeli officer, a paratrooper, with his wife there. He started asking us questions, became friendly. Wanted to know where we were sleeping. We said, well, we'll probably sleep out on the pavement. He said, no, you'll come with us. And he took us on the back of his motorbike, one by one, took us home, and we slept in his little one-bedroom, one-room apartment. This is how we were treated by the Israelis. We were treated very well by the Israelis. Unfortunately, the relationships with me didn't last. I'm very bad at prolonging relationships, unfortunately. But they were good people. We met a lot of good people. We met a lot of really nice people. Well, when we arrived there, the war was over. And it was euphoric in Jerusalem because of the old city of Jerusalem being liberated. We were staying in the old city of Jerusalem, and it was deserted. It was a ghost town. Hotels were deserted. Houses were deserted. They ran. They left. Everybody left. They left their cars and they went. You saw cars in the streets which had been crushed by tanks. And it was basically the army that were busy there building roads and doing what they had to do. With regard to the rest of the Israelis we met, obviously they were hopefully optimistic. I mean, how long had it been? 2,000 years since they'd seen the Wailing Wall. So as you can imagine, it was a good time to come to Israel, especially as a volunteer. We did a lot of traveling in the Sinai, which was very interesting. Got as far as the Suez Canal. I jumped into the Suez Canal to go for a swim, which didn't go down too well with the Israeli army, seeing as the Egyptian army were dug in on the opposite side. But nevertheless, it was a hot day, and being a South African, we know the South Africans do these impulsive things. And we visited the monasteries in the desert that were still operating with donkeys, operating water wheels. It was quite an eye-opener, very interesting. I was there for 6 months, and then I came back to South Africa, ostensibly to go to university. I should have stayed there, but anyway, that's besides the point. It changed me. As a Jew, it had a profound experience on me to see what a Jew is capable of against all odds. To see the size of the country when you fly over it and you see this little green strip amongst the desert. So that had a profound effect on me as a Jew, and what you're capable of doing if the organization. The Israelis are always chaotic, always arguing, but they get things done. Things happen. They might argue, and everyone has. I mean, an army with only officers, no enlisted people, because they'll say do this, but everybody will have a better idea. But they get the things done. They get the job done, which was very impressive. And you read on the history of where it came from, but also the fact that the country is composed of so many different elements, of people from so many different countries who brought so many different skills, pretty much like America, pretty much like how America became America. It doesn't surprise me what they've achieved in Israel. When we were there in '67, to have a car was a luxury. I mean, you hitched or you caught a bus. We went back there 25 years later. I couldn't believe the progress they had made. I believe now it's mind-boggling, the scientific progress that they had made. That does not surprise me. I mean, when you have a nation of Jews where education is prime, I probably would like to go back there to live there, but circumstantially I can't. So, you know, Jerusalem to me is the most magnificent place I've ever been to. Jerusalem to me was a very, very emotional experience. I love Jerusalem because of the history, because of the nature of it. It's a white city. It's a wonderful, wonderful country. And you know what? You need a diaspora. You need a diaspora. You really do. So as much as everybody would like to live in Eretz Israel, you really need a diaspora. You need an America. You need Jews all over the world. Coming back was not a good experience. First of all, I lost my passport in the desert. And I was taken on the back of a Vespa by an Israeli from department to department to department to try and get another passport, which didn't work. Eventually, the Zionist Federation gave me a letter. I arrived back in South Africa. With a letter, they let me in. They fined me 5 rand, which I did not have. I had to borrow money to make a phone call to get some family to come and fetch me from the airport. Came back with nothing. 0, zip. It was very difficult, it was very hard, and it was very unsettling, and I wasn't very happy. I spent time in Johannesburg with my father, who was still alive, my mother had passed, and my 3 brothers, a few friends, and then I went back to the farm. And then eventually came back to Johannesburg and went back to university and started studying, and eventually met a wonderful woman, got married. There was the enemy. Most of the people that I went over with did stay on, and some did make Aliyah. Some went on to Europe, used it as a point to go to Europe, but a lot did make Aliyah. But as I said earlier on, I wasn't really very good at staying in touch with people. But I know a lot did make Aliyah, because through common friends, I've been told that quite a few went back. It was the best time to go to Israel, by far, because it was euphoria, because of Jerusalem. No question about it. We were very fortunate. It was like going into the desert and it rains, which happened there as well, which was quite amazing. It was a bad situation that brought it about to go. But if every Jewish kid had have had the experience that I had, they would have had the most marvelous experience. They would have seen the Israelis at their best, not at their worst. They would have seen the Israelis at their best, and they would have seen what people could achieve, and how people from all over the world, Jews from all over the world, well, I haven't a financial contribution. We all make a financial contribution. Morally, we all support Israel. We all back Israel. Have I done anything else? I don't think they need it from me. I must be clear. At this stage of time, does Israel need anything from anybody? They are so far advanced. No, I don't think. I made my contribution in '67 for 6 months. I did make my contribution together with a lot of other people who made their contributions, and we continue to contribute, supporting them, as I said, and financially wherever we can, and teaching, supporting the Jewish community. What more can you do? Looking back, what I remember of Israel? I remember the wonderful people that I met, who were so kind to me. People who took in strangers into their home and fed them, and fed them, and fed them, and fed them. Yiddish mama's a Yiddish mama wherever you go. And I think of the beauty of the country, the beauty of the kibbutzim, the beauty of the deserts, what they achieved in the deserts. And I think basically of the emotional experience of going to Jerusalem. I think in the long run, Israel will still be there in 2,000 years' time, because there's something special. Somebody's looking after Israel.